Hello, I'm Meg Miller, an Adult Services Librarian. Welcome to Laser Cutter Craft, a monthly program from the Pflugerville Public Library, where we utilize the library's hobby laser cutters to be crafty and hopefully give you ideas for your own projects. Featuring a different laser-friendly material each month, this virtual version of the program provides a material supply kit for those who registered through the library calendar. This month, we used the material Mylar to make stencils for a Batik technique on a canvas bag. Batik is traditionally a wax-resistant dyeing technique of Javanese origins. Let's take a look at the supplies we'll be using. And our material supply kits are coming in a plastic bag like this. What you'll get inside is the piece of cardboard to put inside of your canvas. This is actually just a kind of a produce bag that we picked up. You'll get the brush for painting on. It's a really basic brush. The glue stick, which we have one of the purple glue sticks so that you can really tell once that glue is dry, and you'll know you'll be ready to paint because it will dry clear. We're providing 3 colors of paint. Now this isn't exactly fabric paint. It is acrylic paint that we have mixed with a textile medium to make it something that can work on the fabric. And so what you'll definitely want to do is wait between when you paint and when you actually rinse. So we've got all of our supplies. If this is something you'll want to be trying, these kind of stencils can be found at most craft stores or online. For this, we cut them with our laser cutter. Unfortunately, the laser cutter, the hobby laser that we have, is out of commission at the moment, so I don't have a video to show you of the laser actually cutting the stencil, but this Mylar material cuts beautifully on the laser and at a really low power and a really high speed, so I could get through these stencils rather quickly. And the same for if you've got leftover supplies. You'll definitely have leftover glue stick. You'll most likely have leftover paints. If you want to try and recreate this on another type of material, we would recommend a cotton or a very natural material like these canvas bags. Mine, you can see, is a little bit on the wrinkled side. So before I start this project, I might consider going ahead, if I have an iron, and just flattening this out and ironing in order to fit it all in the bag. We did have to kind of fold it up a little bit, but the cardboard inside is to go inside the bag here so that we don't get paint or anything glue going through to the other side. So let's get ourselves all set up and get our first layer put on. Alright, so our first steps are going to be to get our bag ready. I'm just going to put my cardboard right on the inside. I've got my stencils and the glue stick. So you're going to want to decide whether you want any of this canvas to show through. So you can see on my example test, I did a few sets of the leaves on this just base canvas color so that that brighter color would show through. These other ones you can see we'll do in the next step after we've put some paint down. So depending on what kind of colors you want your sets of leaves to be. These stencils are a little bit bigger than the ones that I initially did for the testing. Let's see. That's not quite. My piece of cardboard is a little bit thinner, so I've got some edges that aren't quite going to be covered. And I do think I want at least 2 different sets of these in this canvas color. So I'm just going to place my stencil down. I could place some masking tape or painter's tape here if I wanted to. And so I'm just going to start putting a really solid layer of the glue stick down. One of the handy things with this particular type of glue stick is I can see that where some of the glue isn't quite going, and I can go back over and make sure that I'm getting full coverage. Wait a minute. And move my way up to the next set of leaves, being fairly gentle, not going kind of back and forth because these middle pieces of my stencil will pop up. And I don't really want the glue to be under there. So I'm just gently going, making sure that purple gets good coverage. Kind of going back over the pieces where I've gone before if I see the canvas color coming from underneath. Getting a good base. As mentioned, this is going to be a craft where you're going to need to practice working on your patience, because once we get this first one, wait until it completely dries, which we'll be able to tell because the glue will go from purple to clear, and then we'll be ready to start with the fabric paints. If you're trying to speed up that drying process rather than just leaving it to dry on its own, you can use a fan. We would definitely not recommend using a hair dryer since the glue will melt rather than drying, very likely. As mentioned, this traditional technique uses wax. So again, if it was wax that you were using, you would be melting it rather than letting it dry by using a heat air on it. So we are going to definitely want to make sure that we're using just cooler air to dry it. So I've got my first stencil laid down. I'm going to go ahead and pick my stencil up. And there's my first leaf. See, there's a spot where I didn't quite get good coverage, so I can go in and do that. And then for the second one, I'm going to come up here on my upper quadrant, kind of do a mirroring of the two. My little lid keeps trying to run away, which I'm sure will happen to you as well. Alright. Again, I'm going to use my hands to hold this one down. This pattern is a little bit more intricate than the first one, but I really liked the way these leaves looked. A bit more of a pointed leaf. Just gonna keep rolling my glue stick up. So I've got glue on the outside. Spin it around. Get a little bit easier access to this particular part of the stencil. In addition to using the stencil, you would be able to use your glue stick to create just a little bit more basic patterns, some dots, that kind of situation, if you wanted to. Alright, almost to the top here. And since this one is a little bit more detailed, I found it was more likely that I was going to get some of the glue underneath the stencil. Being careful as possible to not do that if possible. Alright, get it all the way in there. And again, I can add two as certain parts start to dry and I can tell that the glue did not fully get. And really, if you take the time to add a second layer, you'll really get a stronger coverage and resistance from when you paint it. This last guy up here, my cardboard doesn't quite meet there, so that's where that little part is becoming difficult for me. You can definitely see that this one did not come through quite as clear as that one. But with the paint on it, we'll be able to work it out. Just kind of adding some more layers. Giving my leaves a little bit more definition. I got some big goopy spots, kind of just going through them. It's kind of evening out so that we get good coverage. Alright, so I think for this one I'm going to leave it as those two sets of leaves just on the lowest in the canvas. So I'm going to set this in front of the fan to dry, and then once I see that the color has all gone clear, I'll be able to do the next layer. And as for my stencils, I'm just going to rinse them off with warm water, wipe them down to get that extra glue off, and so they'll be ready for the next one. To get that extra glue off, and so they'll be ready for the next one. Alright, so I've given this about an hour in front of a fan. You can see that my purple has pretty much gone away, although on this one I was a little heavier handed, and it hasn't quite completely turned clear. But I think for purposes of our tutorial video, we can go ahead and get started. You can also probably tell I added just a few little dots just with the glue stick as a circle, since traditionally the Batik technique is a little bit more hand drawn that you could do. So I'm ready to go ahead and lay my first layer of paint. I'm going to stick to kind of what I did in the example piece. Of course, as always, it's up to you what particular order you use your colors in. So I did the metallic over top. This is just the gold, although what everyone's received is a mixture of gold as well as a metallic kind of mocha brown, and some other gold type colors that I had a little bit left over of. So I'm going to start with my blue and my green on the bottom layer. And because this will be the bottom layer and I know I've got a color going in over top, I am actually not going to be too concerned about where my colors lay. So I definitely know that the majority of this piece of the flower or the leaf pattern, I want to be green. So I'm just going to come right over it with my brush and the green and give it mostly green, and then just continue to cover the bag. Let's get that little dot to be blue, and then on this one I only want part of it to be green. So, and again at this point the cardboard inside is going to be protecting the other side of your bag from having the color leak through. We're going to come up here with some more green, get a little bit in the middle, some down here. And I'm getting just a really even coat where I'm not seeing so much of the canvas showing through. I'm not going to clean my brush between, but definitely if you feel that you would like to, go ahead. I'm just getting a little bit of green in with this blue. Get some blue on this edge here, and the longer I use this brush with the blue, the more it will be just kind of a blue rather than a blue-green. Oops, added a little bit of green to that blue there. I can use my bag to really clear that brush off even more. Come up with some blue up here at the top for this leaf. And I can see as I'm painting where pieces of the canvas are showing through. So I'm just kind of going back over that with my paints. And as you can see, it's really just kind of a mix as it goes between. I'm not too worried about a particular pattern. If you'd like to do that, definitely something that you can do. I really thought this blue and this green looked really good together. You can see I'm pulling some of that green through. A little circle down here at the bottom I want to be blue, so I'm going to start the brush with a lot of blue paint on that one. And as I come over here, I'm picking up a little bit more of the green. And since we've got the blue and the green, I mean, you could do this, I'm doing this kind of on a vertical, but you could go horizontal and do green along the bottom, blue along the top, so it kind of mimics more the like maybe grass and sky. All right, and I've got all of my stencils covered. Got a little bit of some of the canvas showing through, so I'm just going to go back across. Maybe I'll just blend that green right in. Over here. Alright. And so now that I've got my first layer of fabric paint down, in a more traditional method, this would be kind of a dye dip, which you'd also be able to do. If this is a technique that you'd like to look at, there are definitely other ways to complete it. With your library account, you have access to Creative Bug through the library catalog, and you can use that. They have a video tutorial in there as well for a couple of techniques using hot glue as a resist, or like an Elmer's glue pen, although some of that you'd have to wait a little bit longer for it to dry, especially the Elmer's glue, although the hot glue would dry a little bit faster. So if that's something you'd like to try with this, definitely give it a try. Use the hot glue, put that down, and then paint over. With the hot glue, it's definitely going to take very hot water, although some of it should just kind of peel off. Some green up here. Alright, I kind of like where that's going at this point. So again, I'm going to put this back in front of the fan and let my paint dry so that I can go ahead and add the next layer of glued leaf stencils on there, and then put my final layer of paint on. So now I've given my paint some time to dry. It's a thin enough layer that it didn't take too long, but I did put it in front of the fan in order to let it dry. So I'm ready to go ahead and do another layer of our glue stencils and kind of a wax resist. So I can see that my original stencils are starting to be a little bit more visible now that our paint has dried. So I think for my next one, I'm just going to kind of mirror what was there already. And so this will come out with the blue and green rather than just the kind of beige canvas color of the bag itself. So again, just going to hold down my stencil and get the glue going in there, and making sure I get good coverage. I'll be doing the same again where I want to try and make sure I don't have any of the whatever color underneath is coming out, so I get good coverage. Just continuing to roll up my glue stick here as I go along. And I'm getting to the end of this glue stick because it is the same one that I used to make my example. So let's see if I can get that twisted back on. There we go. So really, with one glue stick, you can get quite a few stencils with the 3 on here for this glue stick, and I think it was probably 4 or 5 on the original one. I got some good coverage. All right. Make sure I get good coverage, kind of just coming up to the top of these. And the stem. Sure. Across. Right. It up. one of my little spots of paint. Oh no, that turned out good. No paint on the back. So I know that my stencil is good and covered. Just kind of fill in. And I'll go ahead and add another. Maybe just do a couple of freestyles. So because the laser cutter cuts this so easily, and it's not kind of a pattern that I could have created on my own with just the glue stick, then that makes it such a great way to have this craft. Now I'm just going to kind of do a freehand M for Meg on this, since I've got so little of the glue stick left. You guys will definitely have more that you'll be able to do. Alright, so once I get this final layer, again, it's going to go right back in front of the fan, and it is going to dry. I'll be able to see that this goes clear as we did with the first go round, and I'll be able to add my final layer of paint. Excellent. All right. Be able to add my final layer of paint. And now we've got our bag with the additional layer of glue, stencils, and some of my kind of freehand with the glue on here, and it's been given some time to dry. So I'm going to go ahead and put my top layer of paint on, and then again back to the drying. And as I mentioned originally, I decided that I would do the blue and the green underneath, and then I'm doing this metallic cover over top. You have the option to do whichever version of this you would like. If you'd like to do the brown underneath and the green or the blue on top, however you'd like to do that. So I'm just doing a quick even layer right over top. If you're really interested in learning about the traditional nature of this technique and some of the ways that it's been done, another library resource that you can look to is Canopy. I actually found that Canopy has a documentary on there that has these technique in its original form. So you can search Batik in Canopy and find out even more about this really cool technique now that you've given it a try, hopefully, and have something that you are interested in. Something like this type of project could be done on a scarf or another type of material, some big canvas curtains, or even a lampshade. I would think that is a natural material. You'd be able to do something similar to this and have the light shine through at different levels. Okay, so I've got my thin top coat on here, ready to go ahead and dry. Go ahead and make sure that I've got all that covered. So I've got a little bit of the original color, the other colors kind of sticking out from the top, so I'm just going to cover those and get my bag all the way to the edges. And again, I'm going to allow this to dry. Because this is the topmost layer that I'm going to do, I am actually going to allow this to dry, not really even in front of a fan, but for several days before I do rinse it in really hot water to melt out the glue and get those different stenciled features out from underneath the paint. But I don't want to do that too quickly because I'll lose so much more of the paint itself because it won't have had time to dry and kind of adhere to the fabric itself. So again, we're going to pause, and we will be back in several days to take a look at our final product that has been rinsed in very hot water. So here we are. I actually ended up waiting 4 days to go ahead and get rid of the glue on my bag after peeling off the cardboard where it was stuck a little bit with the glue and a little bit with paint. I've got my bag here. Originally I did this, I cleaned this out with running water. We don't actually have hot running water in the lab where I'm recording this, so I've just got a pan with some warm water. We have a electric kettle, so I heated up some water, put it in the pan here. I'm gonna soak my bag so that I melt off the glue stencil that is underneath, and hopefully not too much of the paint on top. Because I don't have the pressure of the running water to help me, I'm just gonna use a paintbrush to help kind of get some of that glue going. And I'm starting to see here where that glue is starting to melt away in the hot water. And if I need, I can add a little bit more hot water, making sure that it's not hot enough to burn my hands. That might be a little close to that level. So what I'm really trying to do is to get the glue there to melt off. I can use my brush to help me, but I don't want to be too vigorous with the brush because I'm not trying to get rid of all of the gold paint in this area, just the portion that is where the glue stencil was. So here's another one. You can see as it kind of soaks in the hot water, those pieces of glue start to come off. And excellent, yep, there's one where, and I can see my glue kind of turning purple again. And I can see where there is still purple that's the glue, so I can go ahead and kind of rub through that. Alright, and I can see that I got a little bit extra violent right here around, and I lost a little bit of my gold paint, which I didn't really want to do, but kind of looks cool. So I can use my thumb, my fingers to get rid of the glue there. Use some cold water to rinse. And I can really see on that one where there's a lot of glue left. So I'll go back into the hot water and continue to do that until I reach the point where I'm satisfied that the majority of the glue has come off and that I've got that stencil just visible there. Opposite direction for my hot water. All right, and that is some of the majority of my stencils. I'll keep working on this to get the last little bit of glue out of there, but I definitely see where my original stencil and my painted over stencil and then the little kind of M I added in the middle really came through there. So we hope you enjoyed this craft and this Batik technique that we use the laser cutter to help us with stencils for. If you do complete this, we'd love to see photos. And we look forward to the next time.